We got a Padres baseball game to watch on Thursday. They get the job done in dramatic fashion and at times thrilling fashion. 3-0 win Wednesday, game two. Backs against the wall. They get the job done, Todd Strain. What a performance for the pitching staff. What a swing from Manny Machado. Fernando Tatis Jr. showing off the platinum glove. And Mike Shildt, a masterful game of chess, managing that bullpen in all the different situations. Padres showed up, and certainly not a perfect performance, but good enough to extend their season to Thursday, give themselves a shot at a one-win series to get a trip up north to Milwaukee from Wrigley Field. Lots to discuss. He is Todd Strain. I am Darnay Tripp. How you doing, Todd?
Hey, I'm doing well. I was down at Gallagher Square watching the game with
That's
a couple
right.
thousand Padre fans. Very festive down there. They were tentative. They were unsure, like so many in Padre Nation at the beginning of the game. And then as the game progressed, like, hey, this is a recipe everybody talked about. You get a solid start from Dylan Cease, Manny Machado, and Tatis do something offensively. They did it. And you lean on that bullpen, and the bullpen was rock solid and carried it home. And that is the recipe. Padre Nation down at Gallagher Square, we're feeling it at the end. They loved it. They dug it, and they get to do it all over again tomorrow.
And, one game this time of year always has some ramifications on the next game, but they're in a situation where, look, got to throw all the chips in, take care of business today. So we'll discuss what that now looks like for game three. And saw some quotes passed on from AJ Cassavell. So we will discuss that as we go forward. Before we go any further, shout out to OG sponsor of the On Fire podcast. Appreciate all they do for us. If you're looking for a place to catch the game tomorrow, at this point, not certain on the game time. That will, of course, be contingent on the other game twos. Red Sox, Yankees currently in play. Guardians extended that series against the Tigers to a game three, and what happens between the Dodgers and the Reds tonight. So not sure if that'll be, another lunchtime game. Could be later in the afternoon. But regardless of when it is, if you need a place to enjoy the game, hang out with some peeps, have a good meal, maybe enjoy a great beer list, OG's is the spot to do it. And we appreciate all they do for us, for On Fire, the NBC7 Sport Trap team. So yeah, hit up one of OG's many San Diego County locations if you want a place to catch the Padres or whatever your sport of choice is, maybe college football on Saturdays, Sundays, NFL. Without further ado, the walk-up music. Is the On Friar podcast. He is Todd Strain. I am Darnay Tripp, and the Padres are headed to game three at Wrigley Field against the Cubs after a 3-0 victory today to save their season, Todd. And a lot to get to. Dylan Cease, the bullpen, Manny Machado, a signature postseason moment for Manny Machado, Mike Shildt. What is top of mind for you as you think about what they accomplished today to put a discouraging game one behind them and make sure there's more baseball ahead?
Top of mind is Padre pitching. You got better than expected from Dylan Cease. He did not go very long, but he put up a goose egg. 0 runs, and he was clean. He was efficient. Darn right dominating, even though it was a short stint. And then you brought in your bullpen. You go Morion, Miller, Suarez. Those guys have carried you all season long, and they carried you today. And let me just say, not only did they put up a 0, you can win any game where you shut out the opposing team, but they were throwing gas. Average.
You beat me to it.
Oh, you saw Cease, 98.1, Morion, 97.8. Miller 103 and Suarez 99.4. So not only were they shutting down those Cub hitters, they were throwing gas, and that is dominating, that is intentional, and that is hard to face and intimidating. So it starts to me, Darnay, with pitching. I mean, the Padre pitchers, those 4 pitchers were great. We can get into what they have for tomorrow and whatever, but this is a game. You have 1 game to win. Those are your horses. You ride those horses, and those guys delivered in a big way. I mean, 0 runs. Wait, that's pitching perfection without pitching a perfect game.
Yeah, and shout out to Dylan Cease. We were all wondering what we would get from him today and what his mental state would be. Would he get rattled? And there were certainly some situations that arose where that could have been the case, and it was not the case. He was rock solid, and he did what I think so many people were begging him to do all season, which is just fill up the strike zone, throw strikes. You got nasty stuff. As you mentioned, a 98 plus average on his fastball. He had, I think, triple digits on a strikeout, I believe, of Kyle Tucker there in the 4th inning. He was really, really good. And it just goes to show when you are a pitcher of that caliber, when you have that type of stuff, you don't have to nibble around the edges. You don't have to be so fine. If you throw strikes, you're going to have a lot of success. And there are a couple hard hit balls, and maybe got some assistance from the wind at Wrigley Field, but he's got the stuff to do it. And then the slider plays so well, fastball higher up in the zone, slider down and out of the zone. And they play off each other so well. And he mixed his pitches beautifully. And he threw strikes. He challenged Chicago's hitters. He threw strikes and had a lot of success doing so. And hopefully Dylan Cease has another opportunity to start for the Padres ahead of him. Certainly, you would hope that would be the case. And if that is the case, hopefully this game is it should be a huge confidence builder for Dylan Cease, even though he didn't go deep. And, certainly you could have kept him in there. I believe it was to face Carson Kelly. Mike Shildt decides to walk Kelly, bring up the lefty Pete Crow Armstrong, brings in Adrian Marjon, and he got the ground ball to end that inning. And so that worked out really, really well for Mike Shildt and for the Padres. There's always part of me that's like, oh, I'd love to see Dylan Cease finish this inning and see how far he can go, especially considering some of kind of the weight, the burden they're putting on this bullpen. But the length or lack thereof aside, just for him to walk off the mound and there to be, like you said, a goose egg on the scoreboard, huge for the Padres, and I would think massive for the psyche of Dylan Cease, who had a 14+ ERA in postseason appearances going into the afternoon.
Yeah, Tony Gwynn Jr. said on the radio, considering the stakes and considering like what the Padres needed and how Cease was pitching coming in, he thought this was Dylan Cease's best start with the San Diego Padres outside of the no-hitter. And so often this season, we've seen Cease have games like this where he's great for 4 innings or something like that, or 6 innings, but he has 1 or 2 batters where he gives up a home run, and that changes the whole complexion of his start, where he's had stuff that's been similar today, but he gives up the long ball, 1 or 2 pitches come back to bite him. That did not happen today. He didn't give anything, as you said, to any of those Cub batters, and he left with a 0. And on the flip side, it was the Cubs pitcher that gave up the key homer. And so often that has happened to Padre pitchers, and that was not the case today. It was just a rock-solid performance by Dylan Cease. You needed it. He gave it to you.
You make a great point just in terms of the way games have gotten away from him, because it hasn't been the case where, like, some pitchers you're like, we know what he's got in the first inning. Blake Snell was a great example. Blake Snell, you often knew in the first inning how the game was going to go. It's not been the case with Dylan Cease, because he's had some great first, second, third innings, and then things go sideways from there. That's something Mike Shildt has talked about a lot. You look up and you're like, does he have no-hit stuff again today? And then suddenly there's a couple on, there's a big swing, whatever the case may be. And so from that standpoint, maybe the quicker hook or the earlier hook from Mike Shildt is beneficial for Dylan Cease, because you eliminate the risk of that happening. And that fourth inning getting away from him, and all of a sudden he goes from feeling really confident and really boosted by what he did through 3 2/3 to really deflated and feeling like, okay, these struggles that I've had through the post or the regular season have now followed me on to the postseason. And so that ended up being a deft move there by Mike Shildt to take him out when he did, go lefty on lefty, and then Morahone, Miller, Suarez. I asked this on Twitter. I don't know if there's a single Padre who has done a better job at his specific job than Adrian Morahone has done at his this year. You could bring up Jason Adam. You could bring up Nick Pivetta. You could bring up Mason Miller in his short time with the Padres. But he has been as reliable as it pertains to his specific duties as anybody on this team. And he gets him out of that jam and gets him through 2 more innings with no stress to then get it to Miller and Suarez. He's been amazing.
He's been amazing. And it's been kind of, I don't want to say it's found money, but if you remember years back, Morahone was he was a hot shot pitching prospect, from the international talent pool, and people thought he was going to be a starter. And that was kind of his hot shot pitching prospect as a long-term starter. That didn't happen. And then his initial foray into the bullpen just didn't go well. A lot of injuries. And, he showed glimpses last year, but no one, I don't think, could, expect what he has done this year. So he's completely reinvented himself. And now he's at a point in his career where he is indispensable to this Padre bullpen. He has picked this team up in so many key spots this year, so many key hitters, so many key matchups. And today he gave them those innings to bridge from Cease to Miller and Suarez. And as you said, he's been great all season. And he has really, really reinvented himself in a way I don't think, like if you said 3 years ago or 2 years ago or a year ago, to get this player in a trade, just throw in Morahone, nobody would have said, called the talk radio and been like, I can't believe we gave up Adrian Morahone in that deal. Nobody would have said anything. And now he's become an invaluable piece of this Padres team in the regular season and obviously in game 2 of the postseason.
Yeah, you feel that much happier that he did finally get that all-star appearance. He wasn't on it. It took some guys bowing out, for him to finally get onto that roster this year, and was so well deserved. And he has only enforced that more and more as the season has gone on. And you can just deploy him anywhere, and that's something Mike Shildt. He was asked about that with Mason Miller, and he's like, "Well, we've done that with Adrian Morahone. We've thrown him out there in various different situations. It's not like they're waiting for your typical." High leverage late inning type of spot. It's in the 4th inning today, I believe, with 2 on, and he did his job. And he's just been steely and as cool and collected as can be, regardless of the situation. And it's been just incredibly impressive. Our buddy Will Holder, Mason Miller may be the best pitcher I've ever seen. Him. Oh, I see. He actually, this continued. I thought he was saying he was him, but he said him, Morahone, and Estrada going forward is massive. But Mason Miller is him. And there were, I'm sure you saw these numbers. You mentioned the 103 average, 104.5, according to Bob Scanlon, via the Padres. Hardest thrown pitch in postseason history during the ball tracking era, which goes back to 2008. And I mean, it's just like mind blowing what you see out of his hand. He strikes out everybody he faces, basically. 5 outs, all by way of strikeout today. The slider is devastating. The heat now with a little postseason adrenaline is, I mean, guys there's nothing you can do, and he's doing it against heavy hitters as well. Just an unbelievable weapon. This is why AJ Preller is always trying to win now. And Leo DeVries is not getting them 5 key innings, 5 key outs right now, much less do anything else for these Padres. They saw the need to add to a strength, and certainly couldn't have expected the injury to Jason Adam. That acquisition looks even more important now that Adam is on the shelf for the foreseeable future. And it's not just, a good arm. It's one of the most sensational, electrifying pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. And that was on display just in like mind-blowing fashion today.
it's reached a point where you're almost surprised when the opposing hitter makes contact with Miller. I mean, his stuff is unreal. He has command, the miles per hour, nice. He's got other pitches, obviously, that we've seen that work for him. And as you alluded to earlier, you can bring him in like Morion. You don't have to bring him in a set spot. He's not like Josh Hader. I'm only coming in the ninth inning. We've seen Miller deployed in different innings. It really depends on the lineup and key spots in the game, and Shildt can go to him early or late. And he's been lights out. You mentioned the 5 strikeouts today, the 3 yesterday. So he struck out the first 8 Cub batters he's faced in the postseason. It's kind of like Aroldis Chapman a few years ago. Like when Chapman would come in, it was almost like lights out. No one's touching him. You get those vibes, but maybe even better vibes from Miller. And yeah, no one cares about Leo Dallas DeVries right now. This season. This is Miller time. Put Miller in, and he's fun to watch. He's one of those guys. He is a fun pitcher to watch, and he enjoys his success and his Ks on the mound. That is for sure.
Yeah, and just the fact that you can rely on these guys for 4 or 5 innings. I think that was the scary part when they pull Cease. Is are you starting to think about Wandy Peralta? Like who are they going to have to use to get them to the finish line here? And the fact that they could keep it to those 3 arms from the 4th on is such an incredible asset, and a feather in the cap of those guys, just to have the ability to not just come in, get them out of a jam like Morahone did, but to then cover 2 more innings, for Mason Miller to cover 5 outs, to be able to bring in Robert Suarez to get the final out of the 8th. I mean, you mentioned Josh Hader. Like, it's no sure thing that he would be comfortable throwing in that spot. There's just kind of a flexibility and adaptability that this bullpen has, and a willingness to do whatever it takes, which makes them really, really impressive, and even more valuable than they are, just based on what we saw during the regular season. That value is on full display today.
Yeah, and a lot of guys will say whatever it takes, right? Like, put me in, whatever. But a lot of guys are not either mentally equipped or their body just doesn't work in certain situations. They're very routine dependent. Both Morion and Miller, and to some extent Suarez, but really the first 2. They say whatever it takes, whenever, put me in, and they deliver at all different times and never make an excuse. So it's nice to have. And I know you said we'll talk about it later, but both those guys, Morion and Miller, said even though they pitched 2 straight games, they will be available for game 3. That's in their head. So that speaks to their mental makeup and also their physical ability to get ready and want to be in these key games that are season saving and potentially prolonging games.
Miller said, quote, "Whatever Shildt needs," and Morahone through an interpreter, "no matter what, I'll be available for tomorrow."
Yeah, that's it. I mean, some guys may not be available. Those guys are gamers. They'll want to pitch. We can worry about
some guys
later. I mean,
what some guys might not be willing to do it, Todd?
We're here for it. This is a positive Padre podcast. Right, no Padre pessimism or harsh takes from previous ones. No, it's good. And I just keep coming back. It's a recipe we talked about. Tatis and Machado, quality start, turn it over to the bullpen. All those things that everybody said need to happen today. It wasn't a perfect game. It wasn't a great game, but you got what you needed from your big guys.
Yeah, and Tatis defensively as well, just to kind of put a button on what the bullpen did. Suarez ended up getting that double play ball, but a run scores if that ball gets by Fernando Tatis Jr. Fortunately, you got a platinum glover out there in right field. He's got range and the athleticism to make those types of plays. We've just kind of come to expect it from Tatis, and did it in an enormous spot there, because you just never know. And look, Robert Suarez is a guy, we've seen things snowball in him before. There isn't always a lights out comfort level with him that you feel at this point with Mason Miller. fairly or not. And so, you can't help but wonder, especially when, yeah, you'd have Estrada, you'd have others that you can throw out there, but fewer options. You've used your high leverage arms. You're on to Robert Suarez. If that run gets across, then things get really really tight. And Fernando Tatis Jr. kept that from being the case. I felt like watching that game play out. Game one was like all the things can go wrong for the Padres.
Yeah.
Susceptible to the home run ball, relying too heavily on the bullpen, missed opportunities offensively, the lineup going quiet, maybe not a great approach, seeming just kind of a little bit like the pulse isn't there. Like we've seen them go into those phases at times through the course of the regular season. Today was like what this Padres team can do. Now, not to the full extent. They did leave 7 on, 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. So Shildt talks about adding on. It took them longer than it should have to add on. They didn't add on as much as they should have added on. But they did eventually. They've got power. Manny Machado showed that. Dylan Cease is capable of lights out stuff. Obviously, the bullpen is great. And so, like, on one hand, we're having to analyze this team and take a stab at what they might do based on kind of the combination of, like, what we've seen and some of the concerning trends and what we know is in that clubhouse and what we know that they're about their potential. That part showed itself today. And now it's like, okay, game 3, like which side shows up?
Well, this is postseason baseball, right? When you have a confounding team like the Padres, this is postseason baseball. The pendulum can swing, especially in these short series. Like, season's over, this team doesn't do this. They haven't done this, and this all season long. And then today comes along and you say, oh, we have hope. And this team does this, and this pretty good this season. And they did those things today. I mean, this is postseason baseball. The margins are razor thin, and it went the Padres' way today. One other thing, like people I heard coming in this game, the shadows, the shadows, advantage Cubs. They always play in the shadows. It wasn't quite as bright today, but let's be honest. Mound was in the sun, plate was in the shadows, and Machado went deep. So it wasn't the sun wasn't quite as bright, but like, you talk about those things, and then it just happens the other way. And Machado gets a key hit after so many postseason games in San Diego and not getting a key hit, and he got it in the shadows. Like, a lot of this stuff is just not explainable and doesn't jive with what we've seen all season long. But it works, and when it works, your team, you're happy. Fan base is happy.
So let's talk about Manny. And you saw kind of the juxtaposition between the two managers. I think it was Craig Counsell, like advantage Craig Counsell game 1, advantage Mike Shildt in game 2, the quicker hook with Dylan Cease. Counsell leaves Shota Imanaga in to face Manny Machado, to pitch to Manny Machado, lefty on righty. And I believe it was first pitch. Machado jumps on him and again just changes the tenor of the game. And good for Manny, because that is, as much as Padres fans love him, the one kind of barb that gets thrown his direction often is he clutch? Where's the big moment? Because you've seen it from a number of Padres star players. And I think Manny Machado is consistent enough and has stepped up enough throughout the regular season that, like, it's silly from that standpoint. But the fact of the matter is his numbers as a whole in the postseason have not been all that impressive. And it's hard to pinpoint like a signature moment. He did hit a homer in that game 2 win over the Cardinals in 2020, the game which is kind of overshadowed because Tatis hit 2 homers and Will Myers hit 2 homers. And they just kind of went nuts. He homered against the Phillies at Petco Park and was kind of like a blowout win, but like a game changing type of moment. We'll remember the triple play, certainly, because that's just an incredible way to punch your postseason ticket. For Manny to do this, I think is really, really big. And, who knows how much he cares about the narrative and that sort of thing. Knowing Manny, like he'd probably laugh off or shrug off that type of question, but I'm sure it means something to him to contribute
Yeah.
in that manner and to change the complexion of a game the way you do with a 2-run swing like that. So good for Manny, and hopefully there's more in that bat going forward, and more moments and more big swings, because again, he has been such a rock for them for the most part, season to season. Um, it just we love a good moment, and there hasn't quite been a signature Manny moment. We've seen it from Jake Cronenworth and Fernando Tatis Jr. and even Will Myers and Kyle Higashio, all these guys down the line. For Manny to have that is fitting and deserved, and hopefully there's more to come.
Yeah, the regular season and a career of regular seasons for Manny Machado is so many games and so long, and there have been so many magical Manny moments. But in the postseason in baseball is short, and as in recent years, it's gotten shorter with the advent of the wild card, the 3-game wild card, and the 5-game divisional series. Like those series are short. So if you have 2 or 3 games without any clutch hits or big moments, as Manny has, he hasn't really done anything before today, going back to game 3 against the Dodgers. So you had a string of games there that were all Padre losses where Manny Machado did not do anything. And that is a tiny sample size. And it's unfair to Manny Machado to characterize his legacy or whatever in those games, but that's what it is. It's short series early in baseball postseasons the last few years, and Manny hasn't done anything. So that criticism, although the sample size is small, is fair, and it's real and it's valid. But what he did today is also fair and real and valid. He delivered, and this is a short series, and you need your guys to deliver, and he delivered in a big way. Now we can get into the Cubs manager Craig Counsell's decision not to put Manny on base. I mean, it's probably managerial malpractice, knowing once again, as we talked about yesterday, the hitters coming up behind Machado were not as good at hitters as Machado, or Merrill's not as good as Machado, and the hitters yesterday after Merrill, where they took the bat out of his hands, were not as good behind him in that Padre lineup. So like, I bet you just about every Major League Baseball team would rather face Merrill lefty on lefty with 2 outs in first and second than let Manny rip with the chance to pad to that lead, especially with the pitcher who's not it's not like Mason Miller or Morion or Suarez is on the mound. You have a pitcher who has a little bit of, obviously they were concerned about him coming in because they went with the opener. So that is a decision that I'm sure is being questioned in Chicago right now, and depending upon how this series comes out, might be questioned all off season for them.
Yeah, and just good to see an impactful swing like that, because again, Tatis can do it, Machado can do it, Merrill, on down the line. They just haven't done it as regularly as they can, and that's been one of the kind of confounding things. Now Merrill's had the injuries, and Tatis fiddling with his swing and some of his struggles, the slump that he had. Manny, a slow start from a power standpoint, kind of clicked it into gear for a little bit, but 1 home run in the month of August. It's just hard to wrap your head around why these guys, like why it has come and gone the way it has. And part of it is just baseball. But we've seen them do it consistently throughout their career. And when you see a Cubs team go back to back the way that they did, you're like, well, why isn't, Gavin Sheets is hitting the ball hard, Jackson Merrill's stinging the baseball, all these guys, like, what is it about this team that they just don't seem to have that type of power, that explosiveness at the plate, in spite of the names that are on the lineup and what they've accomplished through their careers, especially going to, like, I was looking at that 2020 game. I mean, like, it's like it almost doesn't seem real the way the baseball is flying off the bat of Tatis and Machado and Will Myers and these guys, Jake Cronenworth in game 3. And yeah, the wind was blowing in at Wrigley. Didn't seem to impact Seiya Suzuki and Carson Kelly yesterday. And so again, it's nice to have the potential and what is in that lineup show itself, even if it was just in one instance. That one instance was enough today.
And I also like the fact that it was first pitch. Manny was aggressive. he went up there with a mindset, obviously, that if I see, he was obviously looking for something. If I see it, I'm going to jump on it. And he's got a beautiful swing, and he jumped on it, and that thing was out of here. The aggressive mindset. We talked so often later in the season about how the Padres are playing with a, not, I don't want to say passive, but it was definitely a not as aggressive as they can be mindset, and that had kind of permeated the team with how they had played. And Manny just did not have that mindset. He had an aggressive mindset and took an aggressive offensive swing in a situation where he's Manny Machado. He'll tell you, he'll say, I'm bleeping Manny Machado. You know, he likes to go that, talk about how he posts and this and that. And he has a confidence and a swagger, and he'll say it without saying it, but he wants to say, I'm beeping Manny Machado. And he stepped up to that plate that time and said, I'm beeping Manny Machado, and had a swing that was like, yes, this is I'm bleeping Manny Machado swing in a big moment. It was awesome.
Yeah, Jesse Rogers talked to him in the dugout. I don't know if you caught this, and asked about the pitch Imanaga threw, and it makes me think a little bit of Pivetta yesterday pumping that high fastball, and eventually Suzuki, that one was more belt high, but then Carson Kelly, like they had seen it enough and they reacted to it. In the third inning, Manny swung and missed on a first pitch splitter from Imanaga, and then Imanaga comes back, first pitch splitter. Fifth inning, Manny, this time Machado didn't miss. And Jesse Rogers of ESPN asked him about that, and sure enough, like Manny's going to be aggressive if he's really, really smart. If you give him too many looks at a pitch, there's a good chance that you're going to pay for it. And that's the fine line that these guys are having to, the tightrope they're having to walk. Do something that works, but it might not work the second time. Just because it worked the first time, you're also giving them kind of a scout and some experience and a look at it. And not everybody is talented enough to adapt and adjust. Manny Machado is, and he did, and that was kind of the game.
Hey, have you heard anything from Counsell about why his decision to pitch Machado there? I have not seen anything or heard anything. I was just looking real quick, but I haven't.
No, I did not. But that is an interesting one. There's we spent some of yesterday's pod. He did talk about it on the MLB Network. I can see if I can pull this up. He did. We did spend some time, questioning Mike Shildt, stuck with his lineup. It's very, Mike Shildt's.
Yeah.
Mike Shildt's an interesting cat. He sticks with his trio of lefties. Said these guys have been doing it their entire lives. They can hit righties. We feel good about them, and we're going to give them the opportunity to do so. And then what do they do with Gavin Sheets in the fourth inning?
Very
they pinch hit Jose Iglesias, a righty. Now there is maybe like the defensive component. You're up a run. Maybe it's an excuse to get Bryce Johnson in there. But there's part of me that's like, okay, Mike, you said all this pregame about how you trust these lefties and they're going to do it and they're going to keep doing it. And then you bring in a righty early on in the game. Ended up being inconsequential.
Yeah.
Iglesias flew out. It's not like Bryce Johnson made some incredible play and left. They won the game. So it sort of is what it is. But that should not overshadow the work that Mike Shildt did in this game. More importantly, his management of the bullpen, when he decided to pull Cease, how he used the big arms. And again, I think Mike Shildt is the type of guy that likes to have his presence known in a game. He likes for us to see that he's playing the game of chess and he's tinkering and making the right moves at the right time. And sometimes it's felt like he hasn't had the right touch. Today he had the right touch.
Yeah, the pinch hit for Sheets with Iglesias, it just goes against everything that he's talked about, is why he has those guys in the lineup. So that was interesting and a head scratcher. And I still think when you go three lefties, even if a lefty hits a lefty well, you give the Cubs bullpen and their manager a potential pathway to success at a key moment later in the game. But that's, as you said, that's for another day. Shildt, he pulled the right strings today. And even when he made maybe a questionable move, it didn't come back to bite him. And he pulled the strings and his players delivered. So much of this goes hand in hand. You could question the manager, but often the manager makes a move and then the players don't deliver. And maybe the move has some sound logic behind it, but the players don't deliver. And then other things, maybe a player comes in and makes a good swing or makes a good pitch, and the opposing player makes a better swing and a better play, like Dansby Swanson did yesterday. So much of this is player dependent and a little bit of chance, and everything's, as we keep saying, everything is magnified in these short series. And these are two teams that were real close in the regular season, just separated by a few wins, and had very similar seasons. And both in second place for most of the season in their division. And this postseason, small margins in both game 1 and 2. So game 3, bring it on.
Let's hear what Craig Counsell had to say. If I can get this to work, we're going to try it out. This is courtesy MLB Network. Craig Counsell on the decision to pitch to Manny Machado with Shota Imanaga.
Just what went into the decision? The fifth, Soroka or Machado?
Yeah, I mean, look, the result suggested we should have done something different. Really, just confidence in Shota. Plain and simple there. I thought he was pitching well. I thought he was throwing the ball really well. Unfortunately, he made a mistake.
Sada.
Did you consider going to Soroka?
Yeah. No, we considered walking Machado. Wasn't going to put Soroka in. Considered walking Machado.
Megan.
Just overall, you kind of touched on it briefly there, but just what did you think of Shota's stuff and his overall command?
Yeah.
No, I thought he pitched very well.
You got to the important part.
Yeah. That's fair. And there's nothing wrong with a manager having faith in his guys. That is fair. I mean, you can question it, as I talked about earlier. Most teams.
Kittredge.
I thought he threw the ball well. I thought they did a really good job in the first inning. He made good pitches. So, like, sometimes you get really good hitters and they get a hit.
You tip your cap there, Todd. That's what you do.
No, I mean, it's fair. It's fair. He believes in his guys. You can never fault a manager when he says, I believe in my guys, and I thought he had good stuff. I mean, that's his decision. He and the Cubs will live with that decision. I think, as we alluded to earlier, I think most Major League Baseball teams would have made a different decision in that time. And that's why you're the manager of the Cubs. You make the decisions, and sometimes they don't work out, and you get hammered for those decisions. But never going to fault the guy for believing in one of your better pitchers when he was kind of having a good game. It's baseball.
We'll get to a couple comments. Thoughts on Game 3? Yu Darvish. They also have Michael King as well. Not sure what the Cubs' plans are at this point. But you didn't pitch Estrada today. Peralta, Bradley, David Morgan, Randy Vasquez is there. So I mean, they got a number of guys that they can go to, and then obviously, as Morahone and Miller said, they'll be available. But it's the veteran and the former Chicago Cub, Yu Darvish, to start things off, and similar to Cease, hard to kind of know one game to the next what to expect. I think if you ended up getting 4 innings and a couple runs, like, you probably wouldn't be shocked. If it looks similar to what you saw today, Dylan Cease probably wouldn't be shocked. I think you'd probably be more surprised if he got six innings, 1 earned from Yu Darvish. We haven't necessarily been able to rely on the length from him from one start to the next, but as we've seen, it's about limiting damage and handing it off to a bullpen that should have enough guys to kind of get you through.
Yeah, Cubs announced James Talion is going to start Game 3. Darvish is much like Cease. You touched on. Not quite sure. There's not a huge track record that leads us to have a belief that says he's going to go out in Game 3 and do this, and this, because it's been a mixed bag this season. And you are exactly right. You just want a quality start. You have enough arms in your bullpen between King and Vasquez where you can work the middle innings confidently, hopefully. And if Morion and Miller are both available, as they say, sure, you're stretching them and you're taxing them, but that's what you got to do sometimes to win a series. And yeah, I believe in Darvish. He's pitched great in a lot of these situations, and he has nasty stuff when his stuff is on, and hopefully he can go back to his old friendly confines of Wrigley where he pitched and turn it on against his old team. So, but it's postseason baseball, game 3. It's awesome.
Chip Rocks, Mason Miller went to a whole another level today. Sheesh, that kid is scary. From Kristen, Padres still have a good bullpen for game 3. Go Padres. Also, happy birthday, Xander Bogarts. Tatis Jr. due to break out. 619 Cam. Bogey has been hitting and playing defensively well despite his foot not being 100%. A slight stumble on that double play ball, but got it done today, and he's taken some good swings, and so that's been really encouraging as well.
Yeah, and we talked. You asked me yesterday, I think, who was the key to the game in game 2, and I said Tatis, and I'll say Tatis again. Just you saw it in that first inning when he gets on base, he just puts so much pressure on the other team, and he changes the whole complexion and the feel and the makeup of the game and how the other team's playing defense and what the pitcher is thinking of. And I think Tatis is once again going to be the key in game 3 because he can single-handedly make things happen and create runs and change the complexion of the game offensively or defensively in ways that no one else on the Padres can.
Go Luis Arraez.
Oh, why? What made you say Luis Arraez?
He just out of nowhere he'll have a 3 or 4 hit game.
Sure.
Out of nowhere he'll get a hold of a pitch, and that would just be sweet vindication for Mike Shildt to stick with him in the 2-hole, and for him to have like a 4 for 5, 3 RBI type game. A couple singles, a double, maybe he goes deep. I thought about Gavin Sheets because Gavin Sheets has gotten into some pitches and didn't give as many at-bats as you would have liked before his day was over. So I was thinking about Gavin Sheets, but I'll go Arraez for the content because I think that'd be a fun talking point if things played out that way.
What if Shilty just goes full contrarian and he moves Bogarts up to 2 and drops Arraez down and goes 4 lefties in a row and he goes, "Take this, all you goobers. I know my baseball."
You'd be stunned. I would black out if I saw that. Game 3, we'll be back doing this again tomorrow. Again, don't know the game time, but hopefully sometime shortly after the final out, we'll be with you, hopefully discussing a Padres win and an NLDS series up in Milwaukee. But we got more baseball to watch, and that's a lot of fun. Thank you, Todd. Thank you to everybody in the chat, and we will catch you on Thursday.